Welcome to the Impactful Leadership Show. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. John Lennon once said, "A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality." Join me as we connect dreams to reality by chatting with innovators from around Washington, D.C. Our show is proudly sponsored by the D.C. chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. This is the Impactful Leadership Show. Well, welcome to the Impactful Leadership Show. I'm your host, Greg McDonough, CEO of Blackburn Capital Advisors. Today's guest runs a coaching business specializing in working with small business owners that want to scale and expand, as well as emerging leaders and C-suite executives. Please welcome Beth Anne Ferris. Welcome, Beth Anne.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Very happy to be here. And thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. So we like to focus on leadership, and my favorite question to ask my guests is, Beth Anne, tell me about some misconceptions in leadership.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception that, really pops into mind is that it's about other people, the leading other people. I think that is the biggest misconception that I can think of, right? That off the bat, it is leaders have followers. This is true, right? Any leader has a follower. This is what makes you a leader, is to have followers. However, the idea that it's about the followers is, I think, the biggest misconception. So the idea that we have to influence the other people and get them to do what they need them to do and to move this along is the misconception. The focus shouldn't be on the followers. It should be on the leader. It should be on self.
Interesting. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Let's dig into that a little bit deeper. Over your experience, when have you seen that type of leadership really thrive?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, right? There are good leaders and bad leaders, right? There are, effective leaders, temporary effective leaders that push things through and make things happen, which is great, which is, however, not usually sustainable. Or those great leaders, those are the ones I think you want to focus on. Good leaders, sustainable leaders, and that the followers are happy to follow. They're not falling off. They're not. And the word authentic comes to mind, right? Really authentic, being authentic with self. And that means you got to get to know yourself. You have to get into and heal all those wounds that we have so it doesn't come across. And we have a lot of wounds, right? Everybody does.
And to talk to us a little bit more about healing and wounds and self-awareness and being authentic, we've got podcast listeners listening today who, like me, have wounds that over time I'm trying to repair. Talk to us about that journey for those individuals.
Self-reflection, right? A coach can help tremendously. And when I got into coaching, this was something that was almost a bit surprising to me. I mean, I know we all have wounds. However, the leaders, the ones that have that ambition, that want to go and change the world, usually have a lot of stuff going on, and deep wounds that have actually made them who they are. This propels them into wanting to change and wanting to do great things and having all that ambition. So it's a double-edged sword. You're going to get both. And when I started kind of this journey of switching into coaching from consulting and getting into the real person and getting into leadership development, those are the things that hold us back. And how do we do that? It can be a lot of work, right? It can be a lot of work, a lot of awareness. Doesn't have to be, like therapy that we're really digging in. I love therapy. I'm not knocking therapy. However, it can take a long time, right? We don't have time to spend 5 years in therapy to get some of this progress, which is where a coach can help facilitate that so much faster.
Certainly. And that the next layer, I think, of this onion skin is vulnerability.
Yes.
And one of the things that we struggle with in leadership is you feel as if you got to stand on the chair with a brave chest out and ready to lead and walk through the wall. But for me, a lot of it fits also into vulnerability, and that allows followers to follow or motivates them to follow.
You're absolutely right, but you cannot be truly vulnerable and authentic when you've got a wall up because of past trauma. You can't, it doesn't work. And I see it over and over and over again, right? If you're not willing to go there, you got to let those walls down and be able to get through some of that. And I keep saying trauma, right? But the trauma that's in your life, and be able to face that. When you're authentic and be able to face that, then your authenticness comes out. It doesn't, right? It doesn't, there's no barriers left. I mean, there's always going to be some small things, right? Some small things that come up, but you don't get past your trauma, there is zero probability you're going to be the leader, that great leader that you want to be.
That's very insightful. Beth Anne, talk to me about kind of the first step, right? We've got an audience member, even myself, what's the first step to breaking through that self-awareness, helping get through the wall so that you can become the leader that you know you should be?
First step. Well, I'm a coach, so the first step I think is, get some help, get somebody that knows what you need, and then be able to that flexibility. Also, everybody's different. Everybody's got different. Their path is going to be different, but get somebody that you trust. Get somebody that you can have these conversations with, because it's not a day-to-day thing. We don't talk about this every day. You don't go to the board reading and talk about this vulnerability. However, when you bring vulnerability, when you bring your true self, that authentic self into the boardroom, stuff changes, right? When you allow yourself as the leader to be vulnerable, as the leader, be authentic. And you touched on it earlier, you don't have to have all the answers, right? That's another big misconception about leadership. You don't have all the answers, right? That's the wall. That's part of the wall of, I have to, right? I'm not going to feel, secure, or I have to show that my followers that I have complete control and I know all the answers and I can get this done for them to follow you. They know, right? People around you know if you don't have the answer. They will know. It'll show up at some point.
That's right. I completely agree. Thinking about sort of early on in someone's career and whichever path they're going through, either corporate, entrepreneurship, whichever, at some point in time, these leadership skills and personality pro forma start coming to the surface. How do you identify your leadership style sort of earlier on in a career path or on your journey?
How to get that style? I always suggest looking at other leaders, right? Looking at the leaders that you want to emulate. Look at those people. What are the qualities that they have? What are they? What are, dig into a few people, maybe, larger leaders, right? Like very public leaders, or leaders that you have in your surroundings, people that people that, have led you. What are those qualities that you admire and that you appreciate in them, and then work on that?
Well said. So switching gears slightly, when you look at leaders, either on the television, around your community, in your home, what traits do you admire in particular?
Honesty, authenticity, right? They have drive. They're inspired, right? You want to inspire other people, but you have to be inspired yourself. So finding that, your why, finding your purpose. What are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? And it's not just for money. It's never just for money. Usually it's, I want to make money and I want to work. I don't want to work for the man. I want to work for me and I want to have all the freedom. However, if your audience probably is mostly entrepreneurs, this really quickly that now you're tied 24/7 to a business, right? It becomes you and it can easily take over your life. You're now working not for the man, but for your business. So finding that balance is important, right? Finding that, but you got to know why you're doing what you're doing and have to be inspired by that. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. It's the underneath part. What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And waking up every morning going, that's the thing, that's the thing that I'm getting excited about. You bring that energy to your board and your people. And when you're inspired, that spills over.
It certainly does. And I love seeing that shift in entrepreneurs where, to your point, right, the beginning, it's, I don't want to get in my car and go commute to go work for a Fortune 500 company. I'm going to put my shingle out. I'm going to do X and Y because I need to put food on the table. But at some point in time, it might not even be that business, but it's another reason why you wake up every day. I feel like I retired 10 years ago because I do what I love every day, right? So it's not work anymore.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and that's great. And sometimes that works, right? That's kind of the dream. However, if you dig deep enough, it doesn't matter what you're selling. It really doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter to the leadership what it is. It's about finding the thing that really gets you excited and inspires you. And it could be that it doesn't matter. Again, you'd be selling popsicles, but what is the thing, right? Maybe creating joy for people, right? Giving that joy to other people or wanting to, I don't know what that is, right? Like it could be anything, but it's yours and you hold on to that core thing and it spills over. Leadership is not just in the boardroom. You bring it home to you too. It is everything. And so when I start coaching somebody, I'll ask them what's happening at home, right? What's happening in your personal life? What's going on there? Because if there is an imbalance of what's going on in the office and what's going on at home, that's a huge red flag also. Because this inspired person, this person that's just, wanting to change even something little in the world, that makes a difference at home too. So if I asked you, what is your purpose? What do you love to do? What's your why?
Yeah, that's spot on. I'm feeling your inspiration just from your responses to these questions. And I would love to hear more about your journey and how you ended up becoming an executive coach. Walk us through sort of where you've been, where you're going.
My background.
Talk to us a little bit about the types of clients you're working with.
Okay. So, I graduated and, moved with my husband to South America. So actually he's European. He is still European, not my current husband, but still European. And we moved to South America to build a business this was just an adventure, right? So there's a little bit of expat, right, in me. I was there for about 25 years, building a business and, raising a family. I did some consulting. I had a, marketing business. So doing websites, we were in a rural area and that wasn't available. So, I just did it. And then that built into a business that kind of turned into consulting. My background in school was management, not leadership, was management. And that was super interesting, right? Being around all these leaders, were a lot of expat leaders, a lot of leaders that were struggling with, this kind of, living and, having work in different society, right? A different culture, which was super interesting for me. And then when I moved back to the US about 10 years ago, I was like, okay, well, now what? What do I want to do? Consulting was great, but it wasn't my why, right? It wasn't my why. I didn't want to tell people what to do because I over and over and over, it's not effective. So my journey to become a coach came from this coming back to the US. Now, what do I want to do? How do I want the rest of my life? What do I want to look like? And dug into my why, right? Dug into that. How do I want to make an impact on the people around me? I love working with people, and especially one-on-one. I love that. Consulting is great. It was not for me, right? I love digging in deeper, right? I love digging in deeper. I love finding those places where, you get those aha moments of, oh my gosh, I've been looking at the situation in a totally different or totally wrong way. How can I change and shift and do that totally differently? So I got into leadership. I have my master's degree in organizational leadership, leadership and organizational design. And that was fascinating. And that led into coaching, because that gets me up in the morning, right? Gets me up in the morning. The trauma-informed part of coaching was something that I added on. Emotional intelligence was something that I added on. NLP is something that I also added on. I'm pretty much a lifelong learner. I love it. And we talked about earlier, I am currently working on a PhD in business psychology. That fascinates people, fascinate me. Behavior fascinates me. And I love what I do, right? I mean, it's exciting and I never know what I'm going to get. I have to let go. I have to learn all this stuff, and I get to learn all the psychology and behind all this. But then I have to let this go when I have a coaching conversation, let everything go and just be with that person and allow them to get where they need to go without me interjecting what I think they need, if that makes sense.
Completely makes sense.
It's kind of it's kind of this dance, right? Of, I don't know where it's going to go. Whenever I have a coaching conversation, I mean, there's sometimes, you have assessments and things that we need to talk about, but I never, in a coaching conversation, never have an agenda. It's going to be them, and we're going to dig in to wherever that is and remove, removing blocks one by one.
So it leads me to the loaded question, right? Of when is the right time to find and hire a coach? I'm thinking across my journey, and I've been working with same coach for probably 12 years now. And the reason I hired her, I was transitioning from being a CFO to a CEO, and I realized that I had a blind spot there. And I just happened to be swimming in a master's program, and this woman who was an executive coach was swimming in my lane, and we had a conversation. And next thing you know, 12 years later, we're still working together.
Yeah.
But so my point being, it's kind of, for me, it was a random walk of just falling into a coaching relationship. Mm-hmm. For others, how do you see that first initial sort of aha moment that somebody says, oh, I need a coach? And then what's the next step to finding the fit, the style? Talk to us through that part of it.
Well, I mean, I'm going to answer that question with a question. What do you get out of coaching? What are you getting from this relationship?
Yeah, many different things. First, accountability, right? I know every 2 weeks when that reminder, that invite pops up, it's, oh, I better get my act together. And two, it's a completely different perspective of whatever I'm contemplating. It could be a new business idea. It could be a relationship in my home. It could be a mixture of everything. She's also got an amazing ability to sort of retain my history. And so she brings up things in our conversations that I'm like, oh yeah, I have done this before, or when I tried this the last time. And so, those are a few of the many things, especially around decision making and helping me process, and whiteboarding out ideas and mind mapping and goal setting and on and on and on. So
yeah,
period.
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to know what the first thing is. What do I want to get out of this situation, right? What do I want to get out of a relationship or a coaching engagement? What do you want personally? There are some people that want some specific, they want a coach to tell them what to do, right? So you need to find a coach that's going to, figure out what you want first. What is it? Do you want the accountability? Do you want the new perspective? Do you want this arena to be able to really talk about things that, number one, they don't come up a lot. They're normal conversation. Being a leader is lonely. It is lonely. It feels lonely a lot of the times. You don't have the really safe space to be able to talk about some of these hard things. And a great coach is going to help you with those blocks that you don't even know you have. Right.
Yep.
She must bring up things also like what's going on here, and they're bringing those parallels together, and what's happening. How is this affecting you? When we get into a situation where, we can move so fast, and a lot of leaders move very, very fast, right? Your brain is going all the time, fast, go, go, go. And it is a time also to slow down and make sure you're running in the right path, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a little bit off, you could end up somewhere where you don't want to be able to slow down, calm down for a moment, and really think about what that is and how to get there and adjust and change. And every couple of weeks, having a conversation around that can just be like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, okay, got it. Let's go. And then go off and run again.
That's exactly right. Now, you mentioned a few letters a few minutes ago called NLP. And I've heard that those letters a couple times, and I'm starting to get familiar with it a little bit. Talk to us a little bit more what NLP is for the audience and for myself.
Okay, it's neurological linguistic programming, and it's not new. It's relatively new compared to older psychology. It takes little bits and pieces from a lot of different areas, and what you're really doing is it's a very highly listening skill. So we're really listening to words and how you're putting words together and what those ultimately mean. So we can through this, and there's a lot of different methods. So I think I've got 3 different certifications in a lot of different ones, because there's a lot of similarities, but some have some different things that go a little bit deeper. And this is a great tool to understand a person's, we think differently. I think differently from you. I think differently from everybody else. We don't have the same experiences. We didn't grow up the same way. We don't have the same background and the same history. So it is impossible for me to understand that. But I want to see what you're seeing through your eyes, right? Through your lens. And NLP is a great way to be able to do that, right? To be able to see what you see and be able to understand through language, through what you're saying, and maybe some body language too, but really what you're saying, really how you're saying it, to be able to identify some of those blocks, right? So this is a great way to do that, to be able to get into your head, so to speak, or understand where you're coming from. And then I can feed that back to you, right? I can what is that? How are you doing this? Right. So understanding the mind in a different way. And it's a great, I don't even want to call it a tool. It is a way of thinking almost, other than, so a lot of coaches do a lot of NLP because of this, right? Because of, we can understand you much better, much quicker. And then there are, I use it a lot for trauma, right? Small T trauma, big T trauma. If it is, and I'm going to be very careful, trauma that doesn't require a psychologist or a therapist, right? Trauma that, we all have some of those things. If you are not functioning and you cannot function, then you need a therapist, right? And that is something, I do. This is not unusual. It doesn't happen all the time, but I will refer people to a therapist if we uncover something that they need, a therapist for. I'm very happy to do that, right? This is not in my area, so I have to be careful about my lane. But smaller T trauma, we can work on with NLP to get into how the mind is remembering some of this trauma, how it remembers trauma, and adjust that, shift that in a little way, so it gives you a lot of relief. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. It's very powerful. It's very powerful.
You've got my curiosity spinning. So, going back to your PhD, what you just described with NLP, it sounds as if you're gathering more tools for your future self. Talk to us about your future self and how you see yourself impacting people, lives, the community.
Well, okay, good. The knowledge, right? The knowledge of the PhD is something that it attracts me. My focus in the PhD is more around change and change management and how to influence people to change, because it is an area where we're always changing. We're never stagnant. However, change is super hard for a lot of people. We don't like it. Most people don't like it unless they're inspired to change. And that's great leadership comes into play. My future, revving up to hopefully, influence, working on such a great project with a number of people that we're not ready yet to open this up to a lot of people, but we are working on some ability to change coaching, right? Change coaching and help people actually through NLP, but in a different way, right? So working on a program to really affect people in mass, if that makes sense, using the concepts of NLP and all the things. There's a lot of different types of kind of therapies. It's not clinical. We don't want to, walk into that lane, but borderline, right? It's a borderline kind of using the NLP, but getting to a lot of people. So this is a really great project. Maybe in a year we will have another discussion. I can tell you all about that. Right now, we're right now at the kind of beginning and the stages and mapping this out, and and getting all the investors and things like that. So it is something that I don't feel comfortable talking about right now, but next year, yeah.
That's super exciting. So tell us how to follow you. What's your social media platform of choice? Somebody wants to connect, an audience member wants to reach out and talk to you about coaching.
LinkedIn is probably the easiest. LinkedIn is the easiest. I guess we can put those contacts underneath there or along with this podcast. LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I do have a webpage that doesn't have a ton of information, but it's there, BethAnneFerris.com. And probably those two are going to be the easiest ways to get a hold of me. I usually look at LinkedIn the most.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll include those in the show notes for sure. So if anyone who's listening while driving, you can just scroll down when you get back to your computer.
Yeah.
Beth Anne, it was awesome having you on the show. I feel like we could talk and go down a handful of different avenues and really.
There's a lot of things, I know. There's so much. And it's, I think it's great. I think the podcast that you're doing and the community that you're serving is fantastic because these leaders need that community also. Entrepreneurs usually get left out of this, right? They don't have the people around them, and creating this community is great. So I applaud you on that. Well done.
Thank you. I love it. It's I did intentionally skip your why question, and this is part of my why. So anyways, it was amazing to have you on the show, and I'll book you for a year out so we can talk a little bit more about your next project.
Okay. Yeah. Once we get that really solidified, it'll be absolutely. I would love to come back and talk about that.
And that's a wrap, my friends. Thank you for spending your time with me. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at impactfulleadershipshow.com. One last food for thought: walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone.